Hello viewer, we are here with the second episode on the electrochemistry 1, and we have already covered certain topics of electrochemistry such as basics of electrochemistry, the terms involved in understanding the ionic electrochemistry, that is equivalent conductance, specific conductance, and different method of its determination. And now moving further, we have to discuss something like ionic mobility and its method of determination, the Kohlrausch law and its application, Arrhenius theory of electrolytic dissociation, and Ostwald dilution law. These are some of the laws which try to explain the behavior in the electrolytic cell, why they conduct electricity and what is the theory behind it. So, first I would like to explain the first term, that is ionic mobility. This is important because this is one of the very important factor on which the conductance of a electrolytic solution depends, and we have to understand it that each ion behave differently when put in a electrolytic solution or in water. If we try to explain the behavior or ionic mobility, it can be defined as the speed of an ion which varies with the potential applied, and we call this term ionic mobility. In true sense, it is a distance travelled by an ion per second under a potential gradient of 1 volt per meter. So, basically if ion is moving and potential gradient is applied, how fast or how much distance a ion can travel is determined by its ionic mobility, and this is a very important factor to understand before we understand conductance. And ionic mobility, if we try to compare with the other states of matter like a gaseous molecule, it is quite low, and understandably this is low because of its collision with the solvent molecule or its collision with itself, which is not there in the gaseous molecule. So, I can say that mean free path, the distance a ion is able to travel without collision, is very small in liquid, and but in a gas it is quite significant. And if you try to compare the ions like H plus ion with other ions, so H plus ion being of a small in size, it is able to travel a larger distance, its mobility is quite high as compared with other ions like Na plus, K plus, etc., but it is comparable with hydroxyl ion, OH minus ion. If you try to understand what is this ions can do and how we can see the ions are moving or not, we have to look at some simple experiment which are there to show the qualitatively way the ions are moving or not. So, the first method which we have to look at, the Lawes moving boundary method. As the current is passed between the electrode of the electrolytic cell, the ion migrate to the opposite direction or opposite electrodes. Usually different ion move with different rates. The migration of ion through the electrolytic solution can be demonstrated by the following experiment. You can have a look on this picture where there is a U tube with in the center of that it contain a agar-agar and with a few drops of alkali and a phenolphthalein indicator. This phenolphthalein indicator give it a slightly pink color, dark pink color, and after it sets in, it form a strong gel. A solution is filled from anode side, sulfuric acid and sodium sulphate from cathode side. We want to see that the ions are capable of moving or not. The ion which can move is H plus comparative with sodium ion. The moment H plus move in the agar-agar gel, it get reacted with the OH minus ion and form water, that is neutralization reaction, and the color goes on this side, the color disappears. So, which clearly shows that the H plus is moving in and it is reacting with the OH minus ion. A visual observation can be made on the mobility of H plus ion. So, this is a very simple experiment which can be performed in the lab, and it can demonstrate the mobility of a ion. The second method which can be used to demonstrate the mobility of the ion in a electrode potential, in a current is flowing through it. So, first we try to look at what this method is. We have a copper dichromate which is dark green in color filled in the lower part of this U tube, which can be marked with the charcoal on this limbs, and then the two sides of the solution is there copper sulphate and you can have a potassium nitrate there. So, you have three different colored solution present in this method, and the moment you apply a potential, the copper ion which like to attract toward the cathode and the anion will like to move toward the anode. This boundaries or the marked charcoal level is going to seen going up. So, basically it suggests that the ions are moving indeed, and which is sufficient to prove that ionic mobility exists and which is quite visible in this colored pictures. As we are able to see that the ions are mobile, they depend upon their size. The number of experiments were performed. One of these were by Kohlroas. He has done a number of experiments on different electrolytes and tried to study their behavior at infinite dilution. Just one observation I would like to highlight, like if I have a KCl and NaCl, they have a lambda infinity represents the infinite dilution, equivalent conductance infinite dilution or the equivalent conductance at 0 concentration. So, these values are measurable. So, they are measured here and they suggest that if the two anions are same, the cations are different, the difference exists is 21.1, which suggests that the difference of K plus and Na plus, but in the second case again the anions are same, the cation are different, the difference exists at 21.1, which try to explain you one thing, that in the electrolyte the ions are not getting influenced by the other cation or anion. They are behaving independent and they are able to give the equivalent conductance which can be summation of the individual ion, which has been pointed out by the Kohlroas, and he has given this well known law of Kohlroas law, which says that the equivalent conductance at infinite dilution of any electrolyte is the summation of the equivalent conductance of cation and the equivalent conductance of anion, which means that they are giving a equal contribution at the infinite dilution, and which can be given a statement like that molar or equivalent conductance of an electrolyte and infinite dilution is the sum of molar or equivalent conductance of ion produced by the electrolyte at the infinite dilution. Or in other way it can be stated as the sum of the molar or equivalent conductivity of cation and anion at infinite dilution is called molar conductivity of the electrolyte. This is a very important law which tries to suggest that the ions behave independently when they are subjected to very high dilution. One of the important application of Kohlroas law is the determination of molar conductance of weak electrolyte. If you remember the earlier lecture, we are able to see that weak electrolyte do not meet the y axis and they do not give the lambda infinity. So, we do not have any method by which we can find the lambda infinity of weak electrolyte such as acetic acid. So, Kohlroas law can help in that regard. It has a direct application in determination of degree of dissociation, the dissociation constant of weak acids, and also the solubility product. Each one we are going to cover in the coming few lectures. One of the important application is the determination of molar conductance of weak electrolyte. We can see that the molar conductance of sodium acetate, hydrochloric acid and sodium chloride at infinite dilution are already provided. Because they are strong electrolyte, they can be obtained directly from the graph, but what remains to be determined is the infinite dilution for acetic acid. How we can do that? If you look at, this is a strong electrolyte being a salt, it is a strong electrolyte and its molar conductance according to Kohlroas law has to be this two sum, And similarly, for strong electrolyte like HCl, the Kohlrausch law suggests this 2 has to be the sum of the individual ions, and we can have the total sum already given here. So, by simple addition and subtraction, we are in position to find out the acetic acid equivalent conductance, and we can simply add and subtract the terms. The moment we add and subtract the term, we are able to get the equivalent conductance of a acetic acid. So, this is a very simple method where the summation and subtraction terms of the terms need to be done, and the moment we do it, we can find the equivalent conductance. One of the important theory which lead to our better understanding of electrolytic dissociation is Arrhenius theory. This theory is very celebrated theory because it has laid the stone of our better understanding of electrolytic dissociation, and credit goes to Arrhenius, who is being a physicist, but he has contributed a lot to the understanding of physical chemistry, electrolytic dissociation specifically. Now, what he has said, we are going to cover that. The main point which is given is that an electrolyte, when dissolved in water, breaks up into two types of charged particle, one carrying a positive charge and the other a negative charge. These charged particles are called ions. Positively charged ions are termed cations and negatively charged as anion. We understand from our modern understanding that the electrolyte need not to form ion. They already exist in the ionic form, which can be proved by X-ray crystallography, and the solvent has to separate out these ions and make them move apart. This is the modern concept, but Arrhenius says that they have to dissociate into ion. Now, the other point of Arrhenius theory is that the term ionization has to be used because the ions are already there, but he assumed that ion has to be formed. So, he used the ionization term, but actually the term dissociation has to be used, and the term dissociation is related with another term, degree of dissociation. We can understand this term as the fraction of molecule which is in the dissociated form to the molecules which are in undissociated form, or we can say the fraction of molecule in dissociation form to the total number of molecules. This definition is already there, the number of molecules dissociated into ions and total number of molecules. As we try to look at this very important term when we are talking about weak electrolyte, the nature of electrolyte which cover strong or weak. So, strong electrolyte, the degree of dissociation is almost 1. For weak electrolyte, it is always less than 1. Nature of solvent is a second factor which is so important because they have to separate out the ion. They have to act as a medium by which the ions do not attract each other and the ions are capable of moving independently. So, more is a dielectric constant, better solvent it is. Now, concentration of electrolyte is another factor. We know that all this theory try to explain the dissociation at dilute condition, but as we increase the concentration, the ions try to behave as ion pair and they do not like to separate from each other, and which give a totally different conductance. Temperature is also a factor because temperature increase the dissociation, and the alpha, the degree of dissociation depend upon temperature. And common ion effect which play a very significant role in inorganic qualitative analysis. So, if an ion is present which is common with the dissociating acid, like if I add HCl to acetic acid, the dissociation of acetic acid is further suppressed by common ion, that is H plus ion. So, ion in present of constantly reunite. This is a very important point to remember, that there is equilibrium, that equilibrium exists between the undissociated electrolyte and the ions which are in dissociated form. So, according to law of mass action, we can write the equilibrium constant, the two terms which are the product and with the denominator having the reacted unreacted electrolyte. So, the electricity has to be generated because of these ions which moves toward cathode and anode. So, we can have a look on that. The positive ion which is called cation move toward cathode and the negative ion move toward anode, and they get discharged, and that is the way the electricity is passing through the solution. Now, if we try to look at what are the evidences which supports the Arrhenius theory. So, the first one is ionic reaction. If you try to look at the existence of ion in aqueous solution is provided by the reaction of salts in organic chemistry. If we have a metal halide with a solution of silver nitrate, a precipitate of silver halide is obtained. So, which clearly shows that the ions are separated out, they recombine and give you a new compound, that is silver halide. If they are not there, then it is not possible. So, existence of ion can be proved through this. If you look at the enthalpy of neutralization, which is for strong acid is 57.3 and for formation of water it is also 57.3, which try to tell you one thing, that if the energy is required to break the bond of strong acid into its ion. So, this cannot be equal, these two terms, these two energy terms cannot be equal, because some energy will go to break out the strong acid or strong base into ion, but that is not the case. So, therefore, these two energy are equal, and which any energy is not consumed for ionization of this compound. So, which means that they exist as ions in the solution. But when we look for weak acid or weak base, the value of the formation enthalpy of ionization of weak acid is getting involved, and that makes the difference between the formation of water different from the enthalpy of ionization of these two acids. If we look at the color of the solution, which further support that, if we have a different two electrolyte, copper sulphate or copper chloride, but even the color remain blue, which means that the anions are not playing a role. The role is played by the copper ion, which suggests that they exist in the ionic form, which is proved without doubt with X-ray diffraction, that the solid like NaCl, KCl exist in a ionic form even in the solid state. Colligative property, which is a property which depend upon the number of ions. These are the four important colligative property: osmotic pressure, elevation of boiling point, depression in freezing point, and relative lowering of vapor pressure. They depend upon the number of species or particle present in the solution. So, if I have an electrolyte which can give the two ion cation and anion, naturally it is going to influence the colligative property a lot, and that is being observed. The colligative property show a drastic value in the case of electrolytes, and which can be assigned to the cation and anion which has formed in the solution. So, conductance is the further proof that they exist as an ion, otherwise it is difficult to pass the electricity through the solution, and they obeys the Ohm's law which is followed by the metallic conductor. But there are certain limitations to Arrhenius theory. One is that it is not applicable to strong electrolyte. We have to look for another theory or concept for a strong electrolyte. A strong electrolyte conduct electricity in the absence of water. This is in a contradiction of Arrhenius theory, according to which the presence of solvent is must for ionization, which is which challenges the Arrhenius theory that electricity which is passing through a solid electrolyte and do not need a water, but how it is possible, there is no explanation by Arrhenius theory. Arrhenius theory assume independent existence of ion, but fail to account for the factor which influence the mobility of the ions. So, these are the few limitation of Arrhenius theory, mostly related with the strong electrolyte, and as we move further we have to look for a theory which can explain the behavior of a weak electrolyte. One of that theory is Ostwald dilution law. If you look at, if I have a weak acid like acetic acid, any carboxylic acid, it can form ions in the presence of water, but remember that they do not form ions when they are in native state in a pure form. So, if you look at the concentration, if I assume they are C moles per liter. So, initially there is no ion present. The moment they are allowed to reach the equilibrium, some amount of ions is formed and the remaining is the undissociated acid or base. So, we can plot a or write a expression for the equilibrium constant, and we can look at that this water term which is in the denominator, it is basically a constant because a huge amount of water is present, and comparative to that the acetic acid or any weak acid is very less in the concentration. So, this amount is fairly constant. So, we can multiply this with the K, and the moment we multiply it, we got a new constant, we call it dissociation constant, and when we put all the values, we get C alpha for Ha plus and C alpha for A minus and C 1 minus alpha for undissociated acid, and we got an expression. This expression is known as Ostwald dilution law, and it has application in lots of weak electrolyte, but it fails in the case of strong electrolyte. You can easily find it out, because if we try to look at alpha 1 minus alpha term for strong electrolyte, this can be alpha can be 1 minus alpha can lead to a totally ununderstandable equation, but for weak electrolyte this equation is very much favored or applicable. And if you want to do an approximation to this equation, what you can do, you can neglect this alpha term and take it approximately equal to 1, and the equation reduces to C alpha square, because 1 minus alpha we have taken as 1, and the degree of dissociation can be determined if you have knowledge of dissociation constant of acid and the concentration. The same expression can be obtained for weak bases like NH4OH, but this law is not valid for strong electrolyte. That has to be kept in the mind. If you look at how to find this dissociation constant, a table is given in front of you, that if I take a concentration, I can determine it very easily by potentiometric titration. I have a known concentration of acetic acid, I diluted it further at least 4-5 dilution is required, and I then use the knowledge of cell constant and the major conductance, I can get the value of equivalent conductance. The equivalent conductance is 1000 into kappa by C, kappa is specific conductance and C is the concentration which I have already here. But look at these values can be used to find the degree of dissociation, the alpha. This value can be used for finding alpha. Look at this equation, these are known values, lambda infinity of most of the electrolyte is known. So, by taking the ratio of these two, you get a value that is degree of dissociation, and that can be understood quite simply is that equivalent conductance is related with the concentration of ions, and the lambda infinity represents the limiting value, the maximum ion which a electrolyte can produce. So, the taking of this two ratio, I am in position to get how many ions are ionized in this concentration, and getting alpha I can plug in this value. The moment I plug in this value, I have a dissociation constants, a range of dissociation constant, but if you look at these values, you will feel that the value are fairly constant, and you can say that acetic acid dissociation constant is constant for this range of concentration. So, in present lecture we have talked about ionic mobility and the method of a determination. Then we discuss about the Kohlrausch law, one of the most important law when we want to find the dissociation constant or lambda of a weak electrolyte. The Arrhenius theory of electrolytic dissociation, where we have talked about the limitation and its evidences which support it, and Ostwald dilution law and its application in finding the alpha and the degree of dissociation like Ka for a weak electrolyte. So, we are able to understand the theories which try to deal with the weak electrolyte. Now, we have to move further and try to look for the theory which is there for strong electrolyte. like Oswald Huckel-Onsager equation, which is there to explain the behavior of strong electrolyte, which is not covered till now. And we will also like to look at one of the important property, that is transport number or transference number, its definition as well as the method of determination of these parameter in the coming lecture.